Allustrious. So my journey begins with Mobb Deep around 92, and to paint the picture a little bit of what hip hop was like back then, I was a 14-year-old and the West Coast was starting to take up. Public Enemy were still pretty big. There was De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest, the Native Tongues were pretty big at that point. Digital Underground were quite big. You had other artists on Cold Chillin' like Kool Rap, Biz Markie, Master Race. Ghetto Boys making a noise down south. And I would say EPMD were taking my attention around that time. They were brilliant. I loved that album, Business Never Personal and Business As Usual. And the Juice soundtrack was out around that time. It was on Max and Dave, the radio show on Kiss FM. I heard Locked in Spotford, and I really liked it. And it was something about the long verses on that track that just captured me. And the rhyming, the skills, I could tell they were young, but there was something about their lyrics and their wordplay and their grittiness and what they were talking about at such a young age that really captured me. And I think, around that time, 279 might have been playing some stuff, Tim Westwood, but Locked in Spotford was my first introduction on the Max and Dave show on Kiss FM. And I remember buying Tragedy's album, Intelligent Hoodlum, in 93, which is still massively underrated. And Havoc was on the track, Past the Tech, and I thought, I recognise that guy. What always makes me laugh is, around that time, I was buying The Source every month religiously. And I remember Unsigned Hype, Mobb Deep were in there. And Reginald C. Dennis was kind of high up in The Source, and he would always write these reviews and have his opinion on things. And I remember him saying distinctly, I wish I still had the copy, but he said 93 had been a bad year. And I look back and I think that's not a bad year at all. I mean, I loved it. I always disagreed at the time as well, but you had Wu-Tang coming on the scene, you had Biggie coming on the scene, you had Tupac blowing up, the Beatnuts, the Alcoholics, you had Curious George, you had Jerry the Damager, Spice One, Fat Joe, Ice Cube, Black Moon at that time, you had Cypress Hill on the West Coast, labels like Bad Boy, and Dre was getting big at that point. MC8 was another big one. I remember tunes like Group Home, KRS-One. I mean, hip hop was booming at that time, huge. Just about every major artist in the 90s were making their names heard in 93. And then the Infamous came out and I bought it, and I thought, this is exactly what I've been waiting for in hip hop. This was exactly the nail on the head hip hop that I'd been longing for the last couple of years. They just hit the spot. Shook Ones 2 and Survival of the Fittest were getting a lot of radio airplay at the time, and I thought these were great. And then Cradle to the Grave and Back At You came on, and it was like, wow, this is like 4 amazing tracks in a row. Similar to how I felt when Jerry the Damager came out. Same sort of thing with Primo on the boards. It just track after track on the radio. It was on Westwood. They just kept coming. And then I was hooked. I said, I've got to get this album. You had Ghostface and Raekwon featured on there. You had Nas featured on there. And these were really, at the time, big names. A lot of it is about timing. And, Nas and Raekwon and Ghostface being on the album. I mean, Nas was so big at that point. And Raekwon's album came out, Only Built for Cuban Links, in the same year as Mobb Deep, so that only helped them. Q-Tip was on that album. And Primo had been with them on their Juvenile Hell album that they probably want to forget because it's nothing compared to the Infamous. It's one album I just put aside and don't even think of it as them. Apart from Locked in Spotford, which I do like that track, and I still do. So the Infamous was just a monumental piece of music that came out in 95 that kind of changed the scene for me. It was grittier, it was harder than anything from the East Coast before that. I'm not talking about Tim Dog or anyone like that. That was kind of rival rap, but this was like proper gritty stories from the streets. And then Hell on Earth came out a year later, and Havoc, I think, did say it was a continuation of the Infamous in an interview I looked at recently. But I think they're 2 separate albums, and I've always had this argument with my friends, and Hell on Earth I've always thought is the better album, but as time goes on, I can see why the Infamous was the breakthrough album, and you know they are very different, and including the production. You know, Hell on Earth was like an album, like one journey, all very a real continuous piece of work to me, like one flavour throughout that whole album. When I say one flavour, that's not a bad thing. I mean, it was like an album. Whereas the Infamous was kind of varied, but the Infamous was a reflection much more of the early 90s with the horns, etc. Whereas Hell on Earth was like, you just wanted to play that in your car and just turn it up. And the beats on that album were just amazing. And, you know, Method Man was on that album, and Raekwon again, Nas again, Big Noid featured. They were just owning hip-hop at that point, I thought. Now, while the beef was going on with Biggie and Tupac, Mobb Deep were top of the game, along with people like Jay-Z and Wu-Tang Clan at that point. You know, when Mobb Deep did a track with Mariah Carey, who was huge at the time, still is, it was as though Mariah Carey came to Mobb Deep because she wanted to get some hip-hop audience, but it to be credible. And Mobb Deep were the perfect people to do that. You know, it wasn't about commercial success, she already had that, she just wanted some more street cred, and you know, who better to go to than Mobb Deep. It was as though Mobb Deep could pick and choose around this time who they wanted to work with. No one would say no. It was like, if you wanted credibility, like not just commercial success, but credibility, you want to do a track with Mobb Deep. I mean, they were doing tracks with like your dream guest list, like, you know, from Rakim to Mariah Carey, even, you know, M.O.P, Kool Rap, you name it. You know, they work with whoever they seem to want to work with, and no one would say no at that time. If you wanted your credibility, just go and do a track with Mobb Deep. So I couldn't wait for Murda Musik to come out. And the bootleg got leaked because it was just so anticipated. And then when it did come out in '99, wow, it was different again. They'd updated their style like they had to, like 3 years later. They come out with loads of singles in between then, don't get me wrong. But '99, Murda Musik came out. And again, it was brilliant. They had some unpredictable guests on there, like 8 Ball. Alchemist had some production on there as well. He was starting to make his name. Just a class album. Prodigy's HNIC was a great way to crown off the 95 to 2000 era that Mobb Deep just ruled hip hop in those 5 years, in my opinion. And to me, that was probably the last great Mobb Deep piece of work, and it was a brilliant album. You know, it really was, and it was on par with Mobb Deep's other 3 albums, Forget Juvenile Hell, and the other 3 albums that they did before that. It's on par with all of them. Now, don't get me wrong, Mobb Deep did some great stuff after the year 2000, but for me that was their best work, and go and check it out yourself. But they did a lot of good stuff after the year 2000. You know, other tracks that are notable to me were Dirty New Yorker, Blood Money. So this is my top 10, Mobb Deep's top 10. Most of them are from that era, 95 to 2000. I hope you enjoy it. Turn those headphones up, you know what I'm saying?